The digital clock beside the bed flashed 6 a.m. It didn't chime with a gentle melody, it buzzed. A harsh, electric sound that sliced through the quiet of the room. Elias reached out, his hand heavy, and blindly swiped at the screen to silence it. He lay there for a moment, staring at the ceiling. The plaster had a small crack shaped like a lightning bolt. Something he had noticed 1,000 times before. He asked himself the same question he asked every morning. Am I awake, or am I just opening my eyes? With a heavy sigh, Elias swung his legs over the edge of the bed. He went through the motions with the precision of a well-oiled machine. He put on the same gray suit, tied the same blue tie, and walked out the door. The commute was a blur of gray concrete and identical faces. Everyone around him on the subway was looking down. Their expressions blank, lost in the rhythm of the daily grind. They were all walking the same path, going to the same places, to repeat the exact same tasks as yesterday. Years had slipped through Elias's fingers like fine sand. He smiled at his coworkers, but the muscles in his face felt stiff. He laughed at the office jokes, but the joy never quite reached his chest. He ate his lunch at his desk, swallowing sandwiches. Not for the taste, but simply to keep the hunger at bay. He was sleeping just to gather enough strength to do it all over again tomorrow. He was safe, but he was hollow. That night, long after the city had quieted down, Elias found himself awake. The clock read 2:14 a.m. The only light in the room came from the cold, blue glow of his smartphone. His thumb flicked upward, scrolling endlessly through the vibrant, colorful lives of others. He saw a picture of an old college friend standing in front of a new house, smiling widely with a partner. He scrolled further. Another friend was exploring the lush, green mountains of a foreign country. Another was celebrating a massive promotion, raising a glass of champagne to the camera. They all looked so radiant. They had someone to love, they had beautiful things. They had brilliant careers. And then, there was Elias, sitting alone in the dark, wondering where his happiness had gone. A familiar wave of anxiety washed over him, tightening his chest. The questions began to circle like vultures in his mind. Did I finish the quarterly report? Will I have enough money saved by the end of the year? What do people think of me when they see I haven't achieved what they have? Elias realized he had built a fortress around himself. An invisible box. It kept him safe from failure, safe from taking risks, safe from the unpredictable chaos of the world. But inside that box, there was no wind. There was no sunlight. He was suffocating on his own fear. The fear of being left behind. The fear of disappointing the people he loved. The fear of simply not being good enough. The next morning, the alarm buzzed again. But this time, Elias didn't immediately jump out of bed. The exhaustion in his bones was too deep, too profound to ignore. He remembered a phrase he had heard once: "Life is not a race. There is no first place. And there is no last place." He closed his eyes again, not to sleep, but to simply be. He took a slow, deep breath, feeling the air fill his lungs, expanding his chest. He held it for a moment, and then let it out in a long, shaky exhale. He listened, truly listened. Outside his window, he heard the faint rustle of the wind, blowing through the branches of the maple tree on the street. He heard the distant, muffled sound of a car passing by. He felt the softness of his cotton sheets against his skin. For the first time in months, he wasn't thinking about the next hour or the next day. He was just here. Elias decided to call in sick to work. He didn't have a fever, but his soul needed a day of rest. He walked into his kitchen and decided to make breakfast. Not a protein bar eaten on the run, but a real meal. He brewed a pot of coffee, and instead of gulping it down, he stood by the window. He watched the steam curl into the air. He took a sip. It was bitter, rich, and warm. He chewed his toast slowly, tasting the butter and the jam. It was such a tiny, ordinary thing, but it felt revolutionary. Later that afternoon, Elias went for a walk in the local park. He didn't bring his phone. He didn't track his steps. He just walked. He looked up at the sky. It was a brilliant, piercing blue, dotted with a few lazy clouds. He had walked under this sky every day, but he couldn't remember the last time he had actually looked at it. He sat down on a wooden bench beneath an enormous, ancient oak tree. The tree was majestic, with thick, gnarled branches reaching out in every direction. It didn't have any bright, colorful flowers to show off. It didn't bloom dazzlingly like the cherry blossoms in the spring. But it provided a deep, cool shade. It offered a resting place for the birds. It had stood there quietly for decades, weathering storms and basking in the sun. Elias realized, looking at that tree, that no one ever dictated that he had to become someone great. He didn't need to be a dazzling flower seen by the whole world. What if he was just an ordinary blade of grass? What if he was a late-blooming flower that wouldn't show its colors until the autumn of his life? And what was wrong with that? As long as he could feel the warm sunlight and drink the nourishing rain, he could grow up quietly. He wrapped his arms around his own chest, a gentle embrace of his exhausted self. He decided, right there on the park bench, to forgive himself. He forgave himself for his past mistakes, for his impulses, for not being as fast or as successful as the people on his phone screen. He decided to treat himself with the same gentleness he would offer to an old, dear friend. The healing didn't happen overnight. There were still days when the invisible box tried to close in on him. There were still nights when the anxiety crept back into his room. But Elias had learned how to open the door to his heart. Just a little bit, to let the light back in. He stopped making mere survival his only purpose. He realized that existing is just an instinct, but truly living is an art. He began to actively look for the tiny fragments of joy in his days. The sight of a stray kitten stretching luxuriously on a sun-warmed wall. The sound of a beautiful, melancholic song playing from a passing car. The vivid orange color of the sunset reflecting off the glass buildings. He stopped waiting. He stopped waiting until he had a bigger house to invite friends over. He stopped waiting until he was perfect to allow himself to be happy. He realized that life wasn't a test he had to pass, nor a debt he had to pay off. It was simply a journey to be experienced. A journey of tasting sweet and bitter, of joyous reunions and tearful farewells. Yesterday's sun could not dry today's clothes, and past sorrows no longer had the right to steal his smile today. Elias walked through the city, no longer a machine on an assembly line. He was breathing. He was feeling. Even if he only took one tiny step forward a day, he knew he was growing. The long night was finally over, and the dawn had broken.